day 10. Day 10 of the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial. Let me just knock that down a bit there. Let me just knock that a bit there. How are we all? Have you been watching it? It was we haven't got the main stars in the doc. We haven't got Johnny Depp in there anymore, which, as I've said before, means that it moves at quite a pace now. Amber Heard. I was reading on the Law and Crime, was it, channel, or the Law and Crime feed? Yeah, it's a 6-week trial Amy made. There's going to be a 1-week pause on the 9th of May, and then I think there'll be another week after that. And so if there's a 1-week break on the 9th of May, I think we've got next week, and then potentially there's another week after the week's break. But I was seeing on the Law and Crime channel, their sort of moderator on their YouTube channel was saying that they think Amber Heard could well be taking the dock or taking the stand in the next, certainly in the next 24 hours. So we could well see that before. Certainly, I reckon we'll see Amber Heard before the weekend. So that's kind of going to be intriguing, because, as I say, it's really hard. I haven't seen or heard Amber Heard talk outside of Aquaman. Literally, I haven't heard. I mean, other than on the tapes, her sort of in her rows and arguments with Johnny Depp. So today's been an intriguing day. It's been a lot. There've been a lot of pre-recorded testimonies. Some of them, I mean, like the last one, which is Johnny Depp's divorce attorney, haven't been recorded back in 2020. I mean, I'm assuming the date, the watermark date print, is when they were recorded. So presumably these are all testimonies and witnesses that can't be brought back in for cross-examination or be recalled. So these are historic testimonies, some going back almost 2 years. Ellie Groves, it did lead to it being very repetitive today. I would say that today was one of those days which was the long, slow sort of slog of courtroom stuff. And I have to confess, it was like the grinding cogs of a knackered espresso maker sometimes, didn't you find? The car guy, well, we'll get to the car guy. So we started with, I think, we had one copper last night? I think we'd had the lady. We had another officer. I think Officer Haddon was the first one. We then had a third LAPD officer. So we've had, and they were talking about 2 visits to the penthouse incident sometime in 2016 that occurred in downtown LA. And this is within a sort of complex in which the police were called to an incident. They got there, Johnny Depp wasn't there, there was no incident, no one would really talk to them. There was a generic white man, and there was Amber Heard, and there was another woman there. And there were dogs. There were 2 dogs wandering around. So we had a lot of questioning of these police officers about whether they, the makeup questions, Ellie Groves, constant makeup questions, presumably trying to check whether she could have been wearing makeup to cover bruises and what have you. So we'll get to the car guy. What was his name? The car guy. Romero, was it Romero? He was I thought he was so hysterical. He was brilliant. Now, there were a couple of moments. Did anyone else feel this? Did anyone feel this with the grilling of the police officers? And what I liked about the LAPD guys was just their blunt, straightforward answers. Yes, no, yes, no. But there was a particular exchange with Officer Haddon that for me shows the incredible sort of sterility and emptiness and vapidness, if you like, of Amber Heard's prosecution or defense team, when she said, "Did you take photos of no injuries?" She actually said to Officer Haddon, "Did you take any photos of the lack of evidence?" He looked so flummoxed about this. His point being, he would have logged interviews, he would have logged photos, he would have logged everything if a report had actually been filed. But when they got to the apartment, no report was filed. Amber Heard refused to engage or talk. No one agreed to say that a crime or anything, an incident had happened. And so, there was nothing to report, and I thought they went to great lengths. And Amber Heard's defence team also said, but she was described as the victim, and as the police had to say, when a call comes in, the call comes in. It's a description. Heard is described as the victim because at that point the call has to have a victim and a perpetrator attached to it. And so consequently, you know, I felt that was really, again, snide of trying to kind of get that victim word attached when essentially no crime had been reported, no crime was logged, no damage or you know, I mean, okay, they did talk about the fact that there was low light, they couldn't for sure tell whether there'd been any injury, but then why would they have called the police to the penthouse suite and then not report it or not make it known or not then show her injuries? Lots of discussion about how low light it was, lots of footage of body cam. We saw body cam footage of police officers going in. Once again, a few probing questions around, did you know who Amber Heard was? No. Did you know who Johnny Depp was? Yes. Were you a fan of Johnny Depp? I've seen some of his movies. Are you a huge fan of Johnny Depp? I've seen some of his movies, you know, trying to almost take advantage of his increased fame above Amber Heard's. And using that as a means to sort of suggest that why would someone, this is why some people are going to sort of come down softly on Johnny. So yeah, so we had the third LAPD officer, we had the second LAPD officer, slightly desperate line of questioning in terms of the dark light and how many meters away was she. And then after we'd sort of dealt with it, so there was little room for kind of for the defence, for Amber Heard's defence to kind of get in there, other than they just kept ploughing the idea that there was too much distance. They were only up there for 15 minutes, and the light was low, and she only saw, and the police officers only really saw the left or the right hand side of the face, and not very many people said anything. So it doesn't sound like a crime scene where people are really wanting to sort of report something if no one's willing to talk about something. So essentially, I felt the LAPD officers were put on the stand to say no crime was committed, and Amber Heard's counsel seemed to sort of run around this fact by then sort of concocting questions like, so did you not take photos of there being no injuries? Did you not take photos of there being no injuries? The house also wasn't trashed up like Amber had said, Kirsty. Absolutely, absolutely. I totally agree. Dale and Nixon, most of them can't remember what happened or how they looked at the time too long ago. Absolutely. And I think that came into stark focus when we dealt with the doorman. And I think the doorman's testimony, so the doorman who was in a car, they pre-recorded his testimony in a car. He's clearly, you know, Romero, I believe his name was, Romero had clearly had, he was basically the doorman at the apartment. He wasn't even there the night of the alleged incident that didn't happen. So we have an incident that didn't happen that police were called to where there was no incident for them to deal with. They hadn't taken photos of something that hadn't happened. Funny that, isn't it? There was a doorman who wasn't there talking about coming in the next day. And so they were questioning him about the extent to which he knew Amber Heard. How often did she come and go? How often did her and Johnny go, and all this kind of stuff? How much did he know them? And then, oh my God, how many questions did poor old Romero in the car get about, do you remember what Amber wears? Do you remember how she wore her hair? Do you remember if she was wearing makeup? Do you remember? I mean, the man lost the will to live. And obviously he'd already testified in the case 3 years ago. He was getting increasingly fed up. He just wants this whole sorry shit show to just go away and just be removed. There was a point in his testimony where he started driving. He'd so had enough. He started to pull off. You could see behind. It was like yeah, all right, well, I've got to get out of here. And it kind of left you sort of thinking, to what extent are these testimonies reliable? We did see some footage. He allegedly, so he came in the next day. Someone who was working there, or someone who was in the gym, claimed to have heard a lot of noise. We did see some quite, it's always weird, isn't it, when you see CCTV footage in elevators. Yeah, look, I like that, Amber Lou. Most boyfriends and husbands don't even take notice of their own partner's hair and makeup. Amber Lou. Yeah, I mean, they were really trying to ram in this idea that if if he hadn't seen any injuries, so there are a lot of questions of people say, did you see any injuries? No. Was there makeup? I think the inference trying to be that she'd used lots of makeup to conceal things. But it's like, I think Romero said, if someone has a swollen face from something, no amount of makeup is going to necessarily conceal that. And if you have a black eye or a blue mark or a bruise, makeup again, you get a sort of, you get a veneer, don't you? So it's like, you're not, it's like he said, he wasn't looking for it. He wasn't like examining for it, but it didn't present itself. But he would notice if it was there. And I think that's the case for all of us, isn't it? I don't know when Nadia's wearing certain makeup, but I'd know if she had a bruise beneath some makeup. I would just know. Do you know what I mean? So Romero, the doorman. Now, and this led to Johnny having the biggest chuckle. And I noticed one of the lawyers next to Johnny kind of advised him and encouraged him and urged him, I think, to not laugh quite so much. There's nothing worse than him laughing too much, because you don't, you know, for his counsel, it would be a case of you don't want the jury to think smug, thinks it's all in the can, all in the bag, da-di-da, da-di-da. So I think I think he has to watch that. He mustn't chuckle too much. Romero in the car did talk about a funny incident where the women were, by all accounts, petrified that there was scratching outside, there were scratch marks on the door. Was Johnny Depp the monster that we'd, you know, theoretically we'd seen him agitated in this elevator footage, agitated with, I think, his security personnel, another person who lived in the place. He did look incredibly agitated. He was kind of like moving backwards and forwards. He had his hat on. You know, was this a man who's just kind of beaten someone up, gone batshit crazy in an apartment where no one in the apartment is reporting this fact, and that he's left? Right, so Romero saw this footage, he obviously saw this footage, but then there was obviously some other kind of aspect to this where I missed the exact details, where there were dogs running around and there were scratch marks on a door, and the women, Amber Heard and the other woman in the apartment, were worrying that this was perhaps Johnny Depp, and actually it was the dogs. And this also led Johnny Depp to chuckle away in his chair. Someone was saying earlier, what is Johnny Depp doing? And I wonder whether he's carving a skull and crossbones into the table in front of him, whilst Amber is drawing fish bowls with little fish in it. Wouldn't it be funny if they're kind of manifesting their most... Isn't it weird, when you think about it, that Johnny Depp is in a seafaring franchise, Pirates of the Caribbean, and she's in a seafaring underwater franchise? They're both... There's a lot of water. There's a lot of water going on. And so, of course, Romero's had enough of this shit. Romero, you know, is in his car. I've done this a million times. I'm not doing it again. I've told you once, I've told you twice. I don't fucking know if she's wearing makeup. Haven't got a clue. I didn't see anything. She's all right. I mean, he kind of indicated that she was friendly enough, but not as friendly as anyone else who came through the building. I think you can judge a lot of people by how nice they are to sort of the people that serve them, you know, whether it be service people or doormen and stuff like that. You can tell how nice someone is. Karen Uller, water equals emotions. You can tell how nice someone is by how they are with people who you could describe as just being service people. But if they treat those service people like humans, you can tell a lot about a person. The next witness, this was a fascinating guy. What did you all think of Christian? Sorry, I've been jabbering away. Sorry. It's almost... What do you think, guys? Yeah, vaping in the car. I think the jury will be laughing, Angela Thompson, to themselves at the stupid question as much as well. We didn't really have a muffin moment today, did we? There wasn't a ludicrous muffin moment. Though, in a sense... you know, the dogs and the kind of makeup questions with the apartment guy. I think the fact that we had the apartment guy, you know, testifying whilst driving away was kind of funny enough. Zoe Zigzag, your answer was someone else. Wonder Woman, if the abuse was 90% directed at Depp, but he retaliated once or twice, would he be labelled an abuser too? that's a really, really good question. That's a really important question, and that's a really important thing, because, and this is, I'm really pleased you mentioned that, Wonder Woman, because this goes back to something I was talking about, I can't remember when, on a live a while back, that if you unpack, when most people have arguments in a relationship, it's because someone in the relationship has kind of overstepped the mark or said something wrong or has been unfair. And, you know, most normal relationships will resolve that or not resolve it quickly. There might be a bit of sulking or whatever. But usually most rows or most big rows are a consequence of some kind of transgression of what the right rules of engagement are in a relationship. And I would say there was an interesting moment with one of the police officers, the LAPD officers, who said, it's not a crime to have a row. And I think that's a really important point. And he said, I row with my wife. And I think that's a really important, it's a very simple point, but it's a very, very important point. And I think the point I'm trying to make is that if you accept that most bad rows, and let's say, we're talking about really humdingers of a row. Me and Nadia have had many. We're going to do a How to Stay Married about that. Big rows. Transgressions are made and that lead to those rows. You could argue, when you look into the kind of forensic microscopic detail of the causes of those rows, like you say, Wonder Woman, could you look at some aspect of what you've said or done or how you've said it as threatening or coercive or controlling, which if you take out of its context and it isn't the norm for you, you can then be tarred with a brush that says you're a domestic abuser. So you're absolutely right. You could well have a situation here where 90% of the abuse was psychological and advantage taking by, say, Miss Heard, of an alcoholic drunk. There were a couple of occasions where she provoked him so much that he lashed out and was unaware of it, and I'm just saying this hypothetically. I'm not saying this is what happened. And who is the abuser? Who in that situation is the abuser? And so you go back to the couples counsellor or the therapist who says that it was a mutually destructive relationship. And I think that's where it gets really complicated. And I think that's where, in a sense, as we go through this granular microscopic detail of all these aspects, you begin to actually start to take apart the simplest of human traits and human behaviors. And once you sort of pull them apart so much and look at them, you begin to realize, oh my God, every interaction we have with anyone is shot through with kind of all this shit. Do you know what I mean? I mean, every row what I keep doing sometimes is I keep thinking, oh, what about that row I had, or we had, let's put that under the spotlight of this court. And you'd be like, fucking hell. We'd be up in flames, both of us, the things we said. And do you know what I mean? And I think lots of people relate to that. But Christian Carino, who saw Christian Carino? James Flanagan, Amber is going to speak, absolutely. Christian Carino was the talent agent. Let me just read this. It's only me. Amber's article that this whole case headline was, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath that has to change. Where is the evidence of any of that? Sorry, it's only me. Evidence of which bit? Johnny needs to take responsibility for putting himself in the position Melanie S. drinks and drug abuse where he could have been triggered by her. Fair point. I mean, that in itself is another huge philosophical question. It's like, they often say when you're in couples counselling, what have you, if you say, well, you made me do that, does anyone ever make anyone do anything? Is there provocation? But then there is provocation. Is provocation a thing? I think provocation is a thing, isn't it? Even if you're drinking, drugging, or doing neither. Provocation is a thing. Is it not? Is it a line of defence? I was provoked, Your Honour, to do this. But that's a good point, Melanie S. He does need to take responsibility. Todd DePew, I think a narcissist is capable of provoking someone so that they can then be the wounded victim. Well, that's very much what the Dr. Curry was saying yesterday about, histrionic disorder. Reese, especially as a black person, those consequences are even higher and elevated, which is why it is paramount often in our community to have disagreements behind closed doors, as out in the open is dangerous. I get you. Francesca Crowther-Smith, Amber using Elon Musk to fill space was telling of how manipulative. Now, this is the testimony of Christian Carino. Christian Carino came in. He was a talent agent or a representative, not for their theatrical work, film work, but for their brand work, for getting them brands that intersect with their on-screen stuff. He represented both Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. I believe he represented Amber Heard first and then took on Johnny Depp. His other clients, he's got an illustrious list of clients, this chap, who I thought was rather good looking. I liked him with his sort of hat on and his kind of cool tattoo, Christian Carino. He looks after Justin Bieber, Miley Cyrus, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, Jennifer Lopez, Reese Witherspoon, and he was engaged to Lady Gaga. there were many times in his testimony where I was thinking, you used to be engaged to Lady Gaga. I wonder how that ended. I wonder what sort of rows you had with Lady Gaga. So, and he was brought in, and he was, there was a curious, did anyone else pick this up? There's a really curious moment with Christian Carino, who I thought played with a straight bat. He was kind of, you know, he played the ball straight down the cricket pitch. You know, he was kind of, you felt he was equal, you felt he was fair. Although I presume he was called up by Johnny Depp's counsel, I felt he was, yeah, credible, Sheeda Roberts, absolutely credible, clear and straightforward and fair. I think he was fair. And he said something at the beginning that I didn't really understand. He said something along the lines of the Sun article written by Dan Wootton didn't impact, and neither did Heard's piece that the whole case is about. He said they didn't have a negative impact on Johnny's career, but then he said that he did lose the Pirates of the Caribbean 6 due to Amber's accusations. I don't see how you can split one of the... I felt there was a kind of inherent contradiction there. Do you know what I mean? I just yeah, exactly, the gems. I thought I didn't quite understand that, but anyway, so you felt that this guy was down the middle. He was friends to both of them. Interestingly, he's not friends with either of them now. So, but again, quite nice that they're not friends, but no axe to grind, no axe to grind between the two of them. He was asked a lot about, because one of the aspects that Johnny Depp's trying to get, you know, the 50 million on, although I don't think the money is actually a major issue for him, is that he wants to prove that the article and what Amber's done had an adverse effect on him being able to play Captain Jack Sparrow. And to that extent, this guy, Christian Carino, was asked a lot about Jerry Bruckheimer, the extent to which he knew that all the allegations had a negative impact. I mean, it's like asking someone, do you think... It's like asking someone in the UK saying, do you think Boris might have gone to a party? Or no, do you think Partygate is an issue? Yeah. Sort of asking whether Johnny Depp was losing work because of what was going on is patently ridiculous, isn't it? So he was using language like it was the culture of, it was understood in the industry. You know, because, you know, the defence are trying desperately to say it's not because of this article. He was losing his career anyway. He was a mess. He was this, he was the other. Do you remember all the hit articles that they read out in front of Johnny Depp saying your career was in tatters, you were getting negative shit written about you anyway? But this guy said, no, it was understood. He'd spoken to a couple of people, Jerry Bruckheimer mainly. It was indicated by Disney and it was indicated by the agency, CAA, that, you know, in all their opinions, this was having a negative effect on Johnny's career. So that, Laurel Nichols, do you think JD's career is now ruined? I think in a sense, what this whole case is about, I don't think he's going to be able to resurrect his career with Disney, come what may, given the nature of so much of the, you know, correspondences, the emails, the texts, the behaviour. It's going to be very hard for them to shake that in order for him to become a family, you know. I mean, you can get a rehabilitated character. I don't know if you remember James Gunn, the director of Guardians of the Galaxy. He was removed for historic tweets where he was joking about, he made a joke about a paedophile or some such thing. He was pulled up on that and he was reprimanded and fired and he had to go over to Warner Brothers and DC, and that's where he made Suicide Squad. He was brought back. I think the rehabilitation that would be required to put Johnny back into place on Pirates, I don't think that will work. I don't think he'll go back to Fantastic Beasts. The third chapter of that has plummeted really at the box office, so that won't be coming back. I don't know what is next for Johnny. I think in a weird way, the only way Johnny can go now, the only place Johnny can go, well, what I think he's going to do with this case is, he's going to try and prove that Amber's batshit crazy, or as batshit crazy as she said he is. I think it's going to be a Pyrrhic victory, which means I think he'll win, but he may lose the case. And I think he wants to equalise the blame. And I think to that extent, it's already working. Whether it will resurrect his career or rescue it, I don't think so. Katie Thomas, you've predicted exactly what I was going to say. I think he needs to consider going in for arty, more art house, low budget, more creative. I think he needs to return to his roots and start to make more innovative, interesting, character-driven pieces. The challenge there for him is that he's done so much drugs and drink, and as we can all hear, it takes a long time for his brain to tell his mouth to say something. So I don't know the extent to which he would be able to perform naturally in those kind of films. But so Christian Carino, now this got really interesting with Christian Carino because, of course, he was involved in the critical moment. This is a critical moment. If Amber Heard was so batshit scared of Johnny that she had a restraining order put on him, why did she say she wanted to meet him in San Francisco? This guy brokered the deal that they could meet in San Francisco, and they even managed to legally work it out that it wouldn't be in breach of the restraining order. Not only did they meet in San Francisco, but they wanted to take the meeting further to a hotel afterwards. Doesn't suggest someone who's scared for her life or worried or frightened. Does it to you? And I thought that was a really compelling thing. And I didn't feel there was any edge to this guy. I didn't feel he had an axe to grind. I didn't feel like he wanted to throw either one of them under the bus. And we then got into all sorts of discussions about Amber Heard and her relationship with Elon Musk. The suggestion he made, this guy Carino said, if you don't want all your dirty linen, aired in public, then stop dating uber famous people. You probably don't get too much more famous people than Johnny Depp and Elon Musk. I mean, imagine being the third boyfriend or girlfriend after Elon Musk and Johnny Depp. You're going to feel so insufficient, aren't you? I mean, aren't you? You're going to be, it'd be like, say, if Kim leaves Pete Davidson, the third person's be like, what, Kanye, Pete Davidson? Who am I? So yeah, Elon Musk. So, but she said, what was this? Elon Musk was a case of filling space, and I believe, if I'm right, and I think I'm right in jotting it down, she said she used the phrase filling space. It's quite revealing, isn't it? Quite revealing. So this guy I thought was really interesting. As he said, he had no animosity with Depp Carino, the talent agent, no animosity with Heard. He introduced them both to the therapist, Dr. Anderson, who said that they were both involved in mutual destruction. He then does directly connect Loss of the Pirates of the Caribbean to the article. Having said earlier it wasn't to do with the article, there was some contradictions there. I have to say it didn't really make sense. But Amber Heard did want to reconcile with Johnny Depp, and the restraining order seemed to be a sort of an annoying incidental detail. And then we ended the day with the final witness was Laura Wasser, Johnny Depp's divorce attorney. And the only thing I felt, she was subpoenaed, the only thing that I felt was notable about this, which could erupt somewhere else, was there was a lot of discussion about the nature of the video footage they were sent from the apartment that the LAPD police officers went to, where we saw the elevator footage. There was a lot of chat about how she'd stored that footage, looked after that footage. And I think what we have to be mindful of here is, in some of these cross-examinations or questions from Amber's defense team, I'm assuming and presuming that when it comes to their turn to bring witnesses in and all that kind of stuff, they're going to have all sorts of aspects and items of evidence that are going to challenge some of these narratives. I mean, obviously that's what they're paid to do. Obviously, Johnny Depp's team will be challenging those thoughts, but be interesting to see Elon Musk, how he feels about being a filling space or a space filling person or a space filling space. I mean, Elon Musk is filling space above us. So there we go. And so I'm curious to know what the sort of angle is with this Laura Wasser woman. I didn't feel that the defence team really knew where to wriggle with her. There's a lot of questions about when did you get the letters, when did you get that letter. There was a particular exchange about whether she was on the phone, this woman, Laura Wasser. Was she on open talkback on a phone whilst Johnny Depp and Amber Heard were trying to reach a resolution in San Francisco? She said no. If they prove that she said, yeah, now my worry is you sometimes see these witnesses, they ask a really killer question. They go like this, they go, no. If I saw them answer like that, I'd be quickly like, get that guy in who's going to completely contradict them, get that text up, because I worry that she's going to be found lacking in some technicality. And given that there was the friend of Johnny's that had to be removed because they'd watched it on the telly, watched some of the footage of the trial on the telly, watch this space, you could end up seeing some of these testimonies removed at some point, or maybe they don't. Maybe this is it. Maybe Amber's team haven't got anything more. Maybe this is the point at which they would bring this shit in. I mean, they obviously, they cross-examined Johnny Depp and they were chucking stuff at him. And here's a big question. Here's a big question. Given the nature of the jewellery that Johnny wears, any physical act of violence from him would leave remarkable, marks, bruises, and evidence on the person that he hit, presumably, would it not? I know that it's not always physical violence. I'm not talking about that. I recognise that, most domestic abuse is psychological. But it seems curious that we've got this far and there's nothing that's really, really slam dunked anything regarding Johnny Depp. Do you know what I mean? And I know it sounds really sort of reductive and simplistic to say, but he wears a lot of rings. But those kind of details are important. Those kind of details are important, I mean, I've got my sort of Johnny Depp-esque, if I was to, I sometimes catch my own, I nearly pulled my nostril off the other day with my ring. And when you look at his hands at his table, do you know what I mean? It's just a thought. It's just a thought. He's got so many aspects to his physicality that would leave so much damage that it's curious that they're struggling to kind of, pull up any truly damning evidence. So there you go, guys. There's my summary of day 10. Try to keep it colourful. Try to keep it pacey. Try to remove all the pauses. Try to remove the repetitive questioning. I think the highlight has to be Romero pulling off in the middle of his testimony. I mean, what a brilliant dude. I mean, he's like, my memory of him is like, fuck you all. I've had enough of this shit. Sort your shit out and go away. I don't know who the fuck she was. I don't know what she was wearing. I don't know what she looked like. I don't really know who she was. And at the end of the day, the only thing that was trying to get into their apartment were their stupid fucking dogs. Brown Betty, Amber had bruised knuckles at a L'Oreal fashion event. Laura Wasser is a very litigious lawyer who's represented very significant clients, Kim K being the most recent, and is ruthless in her representation and often wins her divorce settlements. There you go. Only the best for Johnny then, eh? Emma does life. The whole thing is just messing. His nature seems to flight, not fight, Melanius. I agree. It almost, not only the footage that we see, but everyone's testimony suggests that he's... Does anyone remember me the other night talking about my budgie called George? For those of you who don't know it, my budgie George was a celibate budgie that grew up with me as a child. He was in a cage. It was just me and him. He chirped away happily, and then one day my mother thought maybe he wants a love partner. Maybe he needs a soulmate. And I was like, Mum, I don't think George does need a soulmate. I don't think he wants one, Mum. And my mum bought him a female budgie. Put the female budgie in the cage. The female budgie was up for it. George didn't want to know. He was scared, shitless, witless, and out of it. He was on his trill like there was no tomorrow, and he would run along the bottom of the cage as fast as he could to try and get away from her. For me, Amber Heard is that woman who's brought into the cage, and Johnny Depp is the little budgie at the bottom, George, trying to get away all the time. So there you have it. So, of course, there'll be one more day this week. Tomorrow's day 11. At some point, Paul Bettany will be taking the stand. They say Elon Musk will be taking the stand. Amber Heard will be taking the stand. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, if you haven't, and if you've enjoyed this and you want more like it, and if you're into showbiz news or movie reviews and all that kind of malarkey, as well as all of our news stories and all our news coverage and, cookery and vlogs and marriage podcast. I mean, we try to be a broad church. Do subscribe. Hit the subscribe button underneath here, down there somewhere. Do subscribe. I swear, you won't be here for everything, but there'll be something that you can pick and choose from. I'll be back tomorrow night for more of the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial. Share your thoughts below here after this is uploaded. We always read them. We can't respond to all of them, but we always read them, and we appreciate your insights. So have a good evening and sleep tight.